you don't want to be locked into a deal with somebody for like the next 4 or 5 years of your life, that as soon as you say something, they just come down crushing on you. You are not going to
Because
have a
that's
good
what's going to
relationship.
happen. I like to use the dating analogy, right? So when you first meet someone, that's going to be the absolute best
Yeah.
version of that person because everyone puts their best foot forward. In today's music business tip, I want to discuss why artists don't have to believe in themselves to be successful. Okay. Successful music careers are not about your mental or your emotional strength, your willpower, or even your motivation. Okay. So what's the number one rule in Fight Club? All right, that's the wrong question. What I meant to say
That's
is, what's the number one rule? What's the number one rule when it comes to having a successful music career? Okay. Number one is always going to be treat your music career like it's an actual business. That is the
absolutely.
entire mission
It's the whole
of what
point.
I do. Because everyone that I work with through my law firm, whether you are an artist, a record label owner, a publisher, you have to be in this mentality of you're going to represent yourself, you're going to protect yourself, you're going to market yourself, you're going to book yourself. If you don't have that mentality, then now you're the person that's going to get taken advantage of, or
Sure.
you don't know the deal terms. Okay. So
It's
treating
called
your
the
career,
it's called the music business. That's what you're trying to get in. What's the second word? Business.
right? That's
So
right. So
treat yourself like a business.
treat your career like a business. And so the things that you have to do in order to be that music business mentality is number one, you get an LLC, which is a limited liability company. This is something that is going to create a liability shield around you so that you, if you get sued, if
Yeah.
something happens, then they're suing your LLC. People miss that critical reason why we set up LLCs, and that it actually
Because it
protects you personally.
because it kind of sounds intimidating. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, what's an LLC? And then you're like, oh, I have to set up a limited liability company. I mean, just those three words together, like, is kind of an intimidating phrase, especially if you're, just focused on your music and you're not yet business oriented. But just know that, it's they're words, but they're just words. Like the process is really kind of simple to do it, and there's services that will set it up for you.
And guys, my rule of thumb when it comes to things that are kind of scary that we have to do for ourselves to protect ourselves, it's only going to be scary once. Once you go through it, you will
Yeah.
realize that it's not a hard process. It's usually not as expensive as you think it is. So for an LLC, you set the LLC. When it comes to treating yourself like you are a business, you need to learn how to negotiate. Okay. So
Mm,
at some point, you're going to have to negotiate something, right? If you're working with a music
yeah.
producer, if you are a producer and you're working with an artist, if you're a record label, at some point, we're doing a deal. And so if you're like, yeah, whatever you want, you're going to get likely not the best deal possible, right?
I think that's a misstep too, because I think that a lot of artists are just excited for opportunities, and they don't realize that they have that power to negotiate, to give a little pushback. A lot of people will just sign contracts going, well, I guess this is just how it's done. I can't make any requests, and they just sign it without getting an entertainment attorney, without even asking a question of what does this mean. And so, I think something really important is, as an artist, as have confidence in yourself, not only with your brand and your music and your art, but have confidence in your voice, in the being able to stand up for yourself as an independent artist, to say the request things you want. All they can do is say no, and then you come back with
Yeah,
something else and
and
you find it.
don't be fearful that because you ask for a certain change or you're standing up for yourself, you're like, no, this is what we agreed to, that you're going to come off as difficult. Be
Or blow
difficult.
the
But you're
deal.
not
You're not
even,
going to blow the deal.
yeah, I mean, because again, the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no. Now, let me tell you, in an extreme case, and this has happened like once ever, we'll be dealing with someone because we push back and they might go off the deep end, but that's actually a good thing. It's a
You
huge
want to
red
know?
flag if someone's like, oh, we're going to, we can't have a meaningful discussion. So you don't even want to deal with someone like that if it does come up. It
That's
usually
great.
won't.
I'm so glad that you just said that. I think that's so important, to red flags when you see them, to recognize them, and the fact that they're showing their true colors, and it's like you don't want to be locked into a deal with somebody for like the next 4 or 5 years of your life, that as soon as you say something they just come down crushing on you. You are not going to
Because
have a
that's
good
what's gonna
relationship.
happen every time, especially at the beginning of relationships,
That's when
right?
you're supposed to be your best.
I like to use the dating analogy, right? So when you first meet someone, that's gonna be the absolute best
Yeah.
version of that person because everyone puts their best foot forward, right? So it only can get worse from there. So it's like that
Yikes.
in professional relationships as well. We're all gonna put our best foot forward. And so whatever you kind of see right out the gate, there's gonna be more of that to come. So if there are red flags, really pay attention to that. So other
Love
than
that.
learning how to negotiate, you wanna have knowledge about contracts, okay? For every single deal that you do with any person, with any company, you always want to have an actual signed writing, even if it's super simple. Okay. It doesn't have to be this lengthy contract. Just have something, and we'll talk about that more. But having a general understanding about contracts is one of the best things that you will do. And I even have like a free training because it's so important.
Yes.
Okay. I'll link it up somewhere.
Hold
It's a
on.
free contracts
Let me see what I have
a
for you.
course that you guys can go through. But in any case, just being like having a general idea of how to look at contracts, what certain stuff means, is really going to empower you. So that's next. And then after that, you want to have knowledge about music industry standards. Okay. So what I mean by that is what's standard when it comes to a management agreement, right? What's standard when it comes to a record label agreement? So having a bit of that knowledge, super important. And let me drop a couple gems on you right now, okay? Like the three biggest deals that seem to come up: agent deals, when you're hiring an agent for like bookings, 10 to 15%. If it's a manager,
Mm.
15 to 20%. If it's a record label, if it's like an indie label, it's common that we do like 50-50. If it's a bigger label, you're getting like 12 to 16%. Okay, so things like that, having it in your back pocket are helpful when the label comes and is like, hey, we'll give you 5%. You're like, what?
And just remembering those things when you are negotiating your contracts with your agents, with your management, that everyone's kind of getting a piece of pie. It's like if somebody's taking 30, another person's taking 30, and your label's taking 60, you're owing some money back. You're never gonna make a dime. You owe all these people. You better get a job at McDonald's.
That's right. So, when it comes to the number one rule of having a successful music career, treat yourself like a business. Now, once you have your business stuff situated, so important. Once you have it situated, now we're going to figure out how to market the product. Okay. We're going to create content. We're going to create the music. We're going to try different things until we figure out what hits. Don't just release one song, post one time about it. No, you release a song and you post like 20 times, 20 different pieces of content. Like
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
think like a record label. Okay. And then as you do that, you will just grow your audience. It happens as long as you continue, even if your growth is not giantly, climatic, you will grow your audience. Okay. So that's piece number two. And then lastly, learn how to monetize. Okay. You don't want to just jump to like, hey, audience, I want to monetize you, buy my shirts, buy this, buy that. If you have like 20 people following you, if you are at beginning stages of your career, start small.
Just
Okay.
grow.
Yeah. Don't just be like advertising and trying to sell and all the stuff. Give to your audience, entertain them, right? Come up with creative, fun content. But first and foremost, treat yourself like a business.